Tanking in the NFL is definitely a real thing, and it's happened as recently as the years that the Browns employed Hugh Jackson as their head coach. They knew what they were doing, and they let it happen because draft capital and getting the right quarterback really can completely change a franchise. In the upcoming 2 draft classes, we've got some interesting quarterbacks that are going to make these draft classes overall very intriguing. But first, we're probably going to see them duel for yet a 3rd college football title matchup between Alabama and Clemson. Tua Tagovailoa has been on the radar for NFL scouts since his arrival to Alabama, and he announced himself as a future NFL quarterback to the world during the national championship of his true freshman season when he came in for an ineffective Jalen Hurts and stormed the Crimson Tide back to win the game with one clutch throw after another. Tua Tung, I'm going to avoid saying his last name as much as possible, Livoa, then had to watch Kyler Murray come out of nowhere to steal his Heisman, and then watch another true freshman named Trevor Lawrence come into the national championship game and steal his title. Technically, Tua could come back for his senior year, and both of these guys would be in the same draft class, which would be insane, but it's widely viewed that one of these quarterbacks is easily the better or at least safer NFL quarterback prospect, and that's Trevor Lawrence. So, barring injury, Tua would be better off declaring for the 2020 NFL draft after this college football season. Both of these quarterbacks could end up being great NFL players, but tanking for Tua or Trevor is kind of like a lesson in patience. As an NFL GM, do you want instant results that will satisfy the thirst of a fan base desperate for a quarterback that can lead them to the promised land, or can you wait to actually quench that thirst with the best college quarterback prospect that we've seen since Andrew Luck? Now, I'll do some in-depth scouting reports on both of these guys in due time, but for now, I'm going to give a quick synopsis of each guy. Tua Tagovailoa is 6 feet and 1/4 of an inch tall, weighing in at 230 pounds. So he's an undersized lefty with good mobility and great accuracy. He's got injury concerns, even though he's built like Russell Wilson, and if you haven't heard about his relationship with his dad, you can go ahead and look that up on your own because it's a cultural difference that may raise some eyebrows. Now, Trevor, he is your traditional tall pocket passer with generational accuracy, but he doesn't come with the classic quote-unquote sneaky athletic label. No, this dude can do it all. Now, he's no Mike Vick or Kyler Murray, but I compared him as a prospect similar in quality to Andrew Luck, and he actually probably moves around as well as Luck also. He's not built as stoutly as Luck, so we'll have to see how he does in his 2nd and 3rd years taking hits from college players, but that thick frame doesn't seem like it's helping Andrew Luck either, so we'll have to see how Trevor Lawrence pans out. Honestly, half the league should probably be positioning themselves to hashtag tank for Trevor in 2020, but there are other quarterback prospects available in the upcoming drafts, and the way the college scene can change from year to year, we might even be talking about Oregon quarterback Justin Herbert as the top prospect come draft season this year. Jake Fromm is another guy that wouldn't require the #1 overall pick next year, could eventually be that franchise guy for somebody. Now, if your team is on this list, it can be kind of a shitty feeling for someone to tell you that brighter days are so far away, especially right before the season starts, because everybody has a little bit of optimism that their team won't completely suck before the season starts, and then they're faced with reality. But I say you embrace that feeling and wear it on your chest like a badge of honor. Literally, Browns and Jets fans, they were doing it for years before they got Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. And I've got you covered here with hashtag tank for Tua and hashtag tank for Trevor shirts in every team color that I've got listed in this video. The link is in the description, and they might actually be featured right underneath this video. Before I get started crushing dreams, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy watching football videos on the internet, and you're here right now watching this, listening to me, so you probably do. When this video gets 1,000 likes, I will post my first 2020 NFL mock draft of the year, the preseason edition. And just because a team is on here as a tank for Tua candidate, it doesn't mean that Trevor is not an option down the road instead. It gets confusing. I'll explain. Let's get started. The Andy Dalton era was a cute attempt at using a 2nd-round pick to find a franchise quarterback, especially with a weapon like AJ Green there to make his job easier. But Dalton can be relied upon about as much as you can rely on AJ Green to stay healthy and on the field these days. It's usually questionable. Andy Dalton enters the 2019 season with 2 years left on his contract, and it's clear that the Bengals are going to give him one more shot and hope for a Jared Goff turnaround after shifting from Marvin Lewis to Sean McVay, understudy Zach Taylor. But AJ Green is already having injury issues, and if it looks like Dalton can't get it done without him, then the Bengals should just pull the plug on the 2019 season and tank quickly to save draft capital. Joe Mixon has been affected by some nagging injuries in the past also, and that's your workhorse. He'll be the Todd Gurley in this offense, so if the playoff chances are looking bleak and Mixon has any kind of injury, shut him down, keep the miles off him for 2020 and beyond to save those knees from turning out like Todd Gurley's. Speaking of saving, the Bengals saved $17 million by releasing Dalton after the 2019 season. This almost shapes up just too perfectly for the Bengals to get a quarterback in next April's NFL draft. The Bengals should definitely tank for Tua. You'll start to notice a trend here with these teams and their quarterback situation coming with a get-out-of-jail-free card at some point. While Jimmy Garoppolo has barely had a chance to prove himself as a 16-game starter in the NFL, he's pretty much on a year-to-year basis based on the structuring of his contract. The 49ers are one of the few teams on this list that find themselves in a position where they could technically tank for both quarterbacks, given the performance of their team through, say, the midway point of the upcoming 2 seasons. But I'm going to predict that the 49ers have success in 2019 despite Jimmy Garoppolo, and more based on the improvement of the running game and the defensive line. We'll be able to blame the new receivers and the recovery from the ACL for Jimmy G's struggles, but after being exposed in 2020 as just a middle tier quarterback, Kyle Shanahan yanks Garoppolo because they can cut him in the offseason that year, save $25 million, and only eat $2.8 million in dead cap space. That's the best deal of any other quarterback on this list, and is probably why the 49ers were able to feel comfortable with paying Garoppolo so much money as an unproven commodity. And then San Francisco is the perfect place for a long-haired, sunshine-looking QB, so the 49ers should undoubtedly tank for Trevor. Matthew Stafford is one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks of our generation. His arm is one of the best you'll ever see, but there's something missing there that has prevented the Lions from reaching their full potential while he's been the quarterback. Maybe it's not Stafford's fault. Maybe it's the coaching. Maybe it's from poor management overall. Either way, Matthew Stafford is getting up there in age, and this team doesn't seem like they're only a few pieces away from contending for a Super Bowl. So if they continue to underachieve, it's more likely the Lions just blow up the whole damn thing. The Lions saved $11.5 million by trading Stafford away this offseason, but take on $20 million of dead cap. After the 2020 season though, those numbers reversed, meaning they gained $20 million in cap space and then only take a $10 million hit in dead money. That's much more palatable and likely the year that some kind of move is made here. Maybe he restructures so that he can finish his career in Detroit and they live happily ever after as a 7-9 team. Or maybe Stafford could go to a team that feels like they're a quarterback away like the Vikings did with Kirk Cousins. The fresh start and realization that it would be his last chance to actually win something could be the thing that helps him rewrite his legacy. Because right now, it's kind of blah. Stafford either needs to elevate this team in the next 2 seasons, or the Lions need to tank for Trevor. Speaking of the Vikings and Kirk Cousins, they have an interesting situation on their hands. While it was fun to joke about paying Kirk Cousins so much guaranteed money, the contract is actually really easy to get out of after the 2019 season, especially if it looks like it's just going to be more of the same that 2018 had to offer. If they lose a couple early ones and the wide receivers are still getting publicly frustrated with their quarterback, it might be time to sit old Captain Kirk with an undisclosed injury and tank for the rest of the season, because this team is really close to being a Super Bowl contender and just needs a quarterback that doesn't come up small in the big moments. The NFC North could be one of the toughest divisions in the league this year, and the Bears and Packers are positioned to be the cream of the crop. The Vikings play both of those teams within their first 4 games and 5 NFC games in the first 6 weeks. You take too many L's in that span of games, you've got plenty of time still to tank for Tua. The Cowboys were a late addition to this list for the drama with Dak Prescott and this rumored $40 million contract. I don't truly believe Dak is asking for that much, nor would he be deserving of such a ridiculous contract. It's probably a rumor started within the Cowboys camp because their front office likes to play these games during negotiations. Remember all the stuff that was coming out with Zeke right when he started holding out? It's kind of immoral, but it's the slippery strategy that Stephen Jones seems to have developed from watching his dad do deals for years. Dak Prescott does deserve to be paid like a franchise quarterback, but this trend that each new quarterback contract needs to be more than the last and be the highest paid player in NFL history, it's getting a little ridiculous. The Eagles front office showed why they're one of the shrewdest in the league by getting Carson Wentz's deal done before Dak's, even though they could have used a 5th-year option on Wentz and Dak's contract expires after this season. In the end, Dak will likely be re-signed by the Cowboys, leaving one of the key players on this roster that's about to hit free agency hit the open market in the next few years. But if I'm the Cowboys, I franchise tag Dak after this year, do everything you can to get Sean Payton to come back, and if Dak still hasn't shown more consistency and accuracy in the next year and a half, you pull the plug on this Dak experiment and you tank for Trevor. Poor Josh Rosen. The Dolphins owner put them on this list before it was even a list and before they even traded for Josh Rosen. The fact of the matter is that the Dolphins might not even have to tank because their roster isn't even good enough to compete in the first place right now. Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be the day 1 starter, and I think that's the right move if you want to give Josh Rosen any kind of chance of showing that he could eventually be your franchise quarterback. The draft pick the Dolphins gave up for Rosen is one that the team could have used to get another building block for the future. So it'd be quite a waste to throw it away a year later and draft another quarterback. Am I right? No, but in all seriousness, Kyler Murray McCaffrey is and was a safer prospect than Tua, and just kind of fell into the Cardinals' lap with the first overall pick right after they hired a coach that made him a perfect fit. Unless the Dolphins find Josh Rosen to be a miserable teammate, which apparently he's rumored to be a little overly arrogant, and if he ends up being a below average quarterback on the field for them, they need to use their 2020 first rounder on either someone who can protect the quarterback or someone for him to throw it to, because there's a lot of intriguing prospects at both of these positions going into 2019. They could get another season out of Rosen with him going into the year as the starter and add another young draft class around him, and then with nearly $50 million in cap space, the Dolphins could also add a couple of nice big name free agents. I think that's part of the reason why they've been rumored to be involved in the Clowney trades. However, I'm not a fan of the potential draft capital that they would have to give up to get a guy like Clowney who might not even re-sign next offseason anyways. The AFC East, though, could be pretty interesting, with 3 of the top 4 quarterbacks from the 2018 NFL draft stating their claim for dominance in the post-Tom Brady era. I've always been a big believer in Josh Rosen, but none of us know what he's like behind closed doors. I mean, you can't be a dick like Aaron Rodgers until you are Aaron Rodgers. But come on, guys, he really can't be all that bad, can he? If I'm the Dolphins, I stay patient and I wait until I can tank for Trevor. The 2015 NFL draft had 2 quarterbacks that seemed like generational, can't-miss talents, and yet their teams are both considering moving on from them this year. Marcus Mariota was one of my favorite college quarterback prospects ever. For those of you that don't know, I go to a lot of UVA games, and that run that he had in Charlottesville was insane. I kind of enjoyed the fact that Mariota wasn't the aggressive alpha male type personality. He seemed more humble than most, especially considering he had a rare combination of wide receiver speed and elite accuracy. I remember thinking it was ridiculous that people were knocking him for being the silent leader type and that his passive nature wasn't going to work in the NFL. And while I don't think that that's what led to him being a subpar starting quarterback in the NFL, I do think he's a little soft. And I mean that with all due respect.
Well, I said with all due respect.
His injury history, though, is pretty weak, with really only the fractured fibula being an injury that you can't play through. I don't know, it's just always something with him. And now they've got pretty much the same guy in Ryan Tannehill as his backup. I like the fit, and I've joked in the past that they might actually get a collective 16 starts from the 2 of these guys. Tannehill might actually end up getting re-signed by the Titans, and they could let Mariota walk because Tannehill is going to be signing for backup quarterback money these days, while Mariota is going to get starter money from someone. Maybe not Dak Prescott money, but a considerable amount for the lack of real on-the-field production from him. And then there's another option: the Titans could just franchise tag him, give him one more chance to show if he can actually stay healthy for a full season. But Tannehill would give the Titans a bridge quarterback that could allow them to tank for Trevor, but it would be interesting to see the Titans go from Mariota to Tagovailoa. I don't think that any team has ever had 2 Hawaiian starting quarterbacks in their NFL history, and it would be so random for it to be a team from Tennessee of all places. Jameis Winston was one of those can't-miss quarterbacks. Even though he came across as a simple country boy, he was like a football Rain Man. The only knock was that he made questionable off-the-field choices. Well, the draft pundits nailed this one because he has continued to follow that narrative into his 5th season with the Bucs. If it wasn't for the off-the-field stuff, Jameis wouldn't be as hard to root for from the casual fan. And I personally want to see Bruce Arians turn his career around. Jameis is the perfect quarterback for Bruce Arians. He's a big, strong, classic drop-back passer that has enough mobility to move around when needed. Big Ben and Carson Palmer saw some of their best production under Arians, but production isn't the issue with Winston. He gets the yards, he gets the touchdowns, it's the interceptions and making mistakes. It's that damn impulse control that plagues him off the field too that leads to him making poor choices on the field. This is going to have to be Bruce Arians' 9th symphony. He's got to take the pressure off Winston and prevent him from feeling like he needs to make that game-changing play every time. The Bucs could even snag a bargain of a second contract with Jameis due to his checkered past, allowing them the flexibility within the salary cap to build a monster of a team around him. With Winston on the 5th year option, the Bucs could technically franchise him next offseason and give him one last chance. But that also could then give him a chance to increase the money that he feels he's earned in that next contract. And I mentioned that Bruce Arians has a type when it comes to quarterbacks, and Tua just doesn't fit that mold. The Bucs should be patient and wait to tank for Trevor. John Gruden is an impatient guy, and he's been a mad scientist with quarterbacks in the past, so Derek Carr is probably feeling the heat when he's not playing it cool on Hard Knocks. There were rumors about the Raiders trading him around the draft, and that's because his contract is actually already an easy one to move via trade. But waiting an extra year makes it even easier to move on, because if you can't find someone willing to take the contract on in a trade, you can just outright release him. Either way, moving on from Carr in 2020 saves $16.5 million with $5 million in dead money. But the Raiders are moving to Las Vegas next year. Do they really want to make that move with a rookie quarterback at the helm, I think that they want to be playoff contenders right out of the gate in Vegas, or at least have something exciting to sell the people there on. Maybe the Raiders and Lions could trade quarterbacks. It's actually a very John Gruden type of move and could actually be beneficial for everybody involved. Maybe I've just been playing too much Madden, and I don't even know if John Gruden wants to get involved with a rookie quarterback at this point in his career, but you never know with this guy. The Kyler Murray interest was probably just because he's a special and unique quarterback that would have had a year under his belt before the Raiders moved to Vegas. Never mind what the Raiders actually want for their first year in Vegas. They'll probably wait too long to move on from Derek Carr, and the team will age too quickly in the next 2 years, putting them in a position where they might not have any choice but to tank for Trevor in 2020. This ended up being a list of teams with mid-tier level quarterbacks on bad contracts, or at least contracts that their teams could escape from in the next couple of years. But I wanted to mention the teams that have top level quarterbacks that are going to be hanging them up soon that could potentially be spots for these 2 future NFL quarterbacks also. The Saints, the Chargers, the Patriots, and Steelers. I hope all 4 of their quarterbacks can stay healthy for the remainder of their careers, for as long as they choose to play. But they are getting pretty old, and heaven forbid something happen, but they'd be the favorites to tank if something did for one of these prospects, so that they can at least get a low enough draft pick to essentially trade up for one and not have to go through years of trying to find their next starting quarterback. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Remember, the goal for this is 1,000 likes on this video, guys. Please help me grow this channel. Once we get 1,000 likes, I will drop my 2020 NFL mock draft, first one of the year. Shout out to my Patreon supporters and the YouTube members. Most of these guys are part of the Fantasy Football Club I started up in my Discord. We've still got some spots in our money leagues. Join the Discord if you're interested, because it all takes place out of my server there, and I will see you all in the next video.